So Google Drawings is one of those cool apps that is embedded in Google Docs, and you can get to it through many of the Google apps, although you cannot get to it by using the app picker or that waffle. So if you were in, let's say I was in Google Slides, if I do File, New, Drawing is right down there. Same thing with Google Docs. I can access the whole program by doing File, New, and going down to Drawing. The other way to access Drawings is just going drawings.google.com and hitting enter, and then it's going to bring up a brand new Google Drawing for me. So some of the things to keep in mind, this is sort of your palette if you are an artist, what you would use, and this bottom corner you can see, if I click and hold that, I can resize this in any way I would like. And so that's helpful because you can sort of decide on what size canvas you want to use just visually. And you can also decide on the canvas size by doing File and going down to Page Setup and picking, instead of you have the standard, what it normally brings up, widescreen, that gives different options, and I just do the Customize. And you have the choices of inches, centimeters, points, or pixels. So it gives you all different choices depending upon what you are trying to work with. There are many ways to use Google Drawings, but three of my favorites are: number one, as Chris mentioned, he likes to use it for graphic organizers, and I know lots of subject matter teachers use it for that purpose, so that might be a way that you use Google Drawings in your classroom. The other ways that I use them for custom banners. So a lot of you are teaching different classes, and you can't get in Google Classroom, there aren't very many choices. You can make custom banners so that you can tell your classes apart by having, you can have sort of like the same graphics on there and just change the background color. And then the other way that I often use it is to make a custom graphic. And I just think that it makes my designs look better and my slides look better. I always tell my students that if you can pair the content with visual appeal, then you have something that is going to impress people, and they're going to automatically look at your stuff and think that it's more impressive just because it looks good. So I like it for the custom graphic designs. And so we're going to go through those three different options right now. So I have a couple examples of graphic organizers, and these come from these two teachers. They must be related because the last name is very unusual. And they gave a presentation last year at MassQ. So this was an example of a character map, and this was an example of a Twitter post that they use. So they put these out for their kids, and then they can just go in. You can link these right in Google Classroom. So it works. You can move them into an organizational system in your Google Drive, just like you would any other document. You can attach it to Google Classroom. You can make a copy for each kid, and then everyone can sort of do this project. And then you can pick and choose the ones, if you wanted to incorporate them into a Google slide, because they are image files. So that's one way. The other thing that I do is I go in search of, so I know if I'm using a Google form or if I'm using a banner in Google Classroom. There's not a lot of choices, and sometimes I like to mix it up because sometimes it just doesn't make sense, the options that I'm given. And this is a quick way to add a custom banner, and it looks nice. So I like, in terms of Google Classroom, I never remember the sizes, so I always search, and so it tells me, how big it needs to be. So this is a 1000 by 250. And so I'm just going to go out here, and I am going to go to drawings.google.com, and I'm going to change my canvas size. So I'm going to do File, Page Setup, and I'm going to go to Custom, and they said it was pixels that I need to be concerned with, and it was 1000. And goodness gracious, I cannot remember. 250. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to type 250 here and apply it. And so now it makes it just the size that I want. And so now I have, this is my background. Now, a lot of people tell me when you do a custom banner in Google Classroom, sometimes like the bottom parts you can't see, so it's really this top part that's mostly visible. So if you go back and look at your Google Classroom, you can sort of see what would look nice and what would not. So you can start laying around images. So if I want to search the web, I can do like a calculator. Okay, and then we learned that we like PNG to be transparent, so it's better for layering. So maybe you decide on the calculator you like, whichever one you want. I don't know, I'll just do this one for now. And sometimes they appear transparent and they're not really, but that one actually is, so that's good news. Okay, and maybe I want to put a ruler. And again, I'm going to do PNG, so I get that transparent background. So because I put my ruler on last, that's going to go on top. But again, I don't like that on top because I can tell what the ruler is, and that looks weird to have the calculator behind it. So I'm going to actually make this skewed a little bit. And then I'm going to order it, and I'm just going to send it backwards once. So there, I like to have the calculator on top of the ruler. And then you can get, you know, graph paper maybe. So you get to decide on what you want to be in your, let's see what that looks like. And so, so here we go. I'll put the graph paper here, and I'm going to send the graph paper. I'm going to send it way to the back. So that's going to be like the last thing, that graph paper. So you can put anything you want on there, and then maybe I would color code my classes. So now I'm going to just pour paint. So let's see. I'm going to get my text box shape, and I'm just going to make it the whole same size as this document. And then I'm going to take away the lines, because I don't want there to be lines. And then I'm going to just decide what color I want it to be. And you can do gradients as well. So the gradients, let's say I wanted to have one class purple. So you see how it sort of swirls out. So there's lots of different things you can do. Now, obviously, I want this box to go in the way back. So I am going to go back to the order, and I'm going to send it to the back. And so now I have my graph paper, I have my calculator, and you could arrange and design it however you wanted. And I could put, you know, 6th period. I could put, you know, you could put your own Bitmoji in here if you wanted to have the picture of you. So whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to name this one. And then I like to organize them so I'll be able to find them again. So I actually have something called drawing. So I'm just going to put it in here. And so now I'm going to go into Google Classroom. So I have my class here. And so usually you can select a theme, but you can also upload a photo. And so the only option is to select a photo from your computer. So that tells me, oops, I forgot to download and re-upload. So I'm going to go do that now. So I'm going to go back into my 6th period class. I'm going to do File, Download, and I'm going to download it as a PNG. And so now that I'm here, I can just drag this file that just downloaded, or I can select it from my computer. And this one, I just have to resize it so I get everything that I want. And that looks good. I'm going to say select class theme. And so here I go. So it sort of puts that like darker shading on it, but you can see that it has the calculator, it has that purplish color. And so now I'm ready to go with my new Google Classroom logo. So Google Forms also have a very limited option of what you can put to the top for the images. And so if you go into the color palette, and then for the header, if you click on that, so you have, like I've used an illustration, but this particular form is for AP testing, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I'm actually going to do a different logo, but I did it based upon, here we go. I did a quick search, and I was like, okay, what are the different sizes? And so it's an 800 by 200 pixel. And so this one I made sure was 800 by 200. The other thing I wanted to show you is sometimes you don't, if you do the search within, if you search here, if I search the web and I say AP testing logo, sometimes you get kind of garbage options. They're not as great. So the other thing you can do is you can open up a different window and you can find one that you like. And so Wikimedia Commons, so this is a Creative Commons, so I can use this without worrying that it's someone else's protected work. They put it up there on purpose so that it could be shared. And so I'm going to go down here, and if I copy the image address, so I don't have to save the picture on my computer, I can just copy the address. If I go here, there's the by URL option. So I don't know if you've used that before. And so I just paste the URL in there, and now I have this AP testing. And so I can put it, you know, in the corner if I wanted, and then, you know, I could just make a white background. So again, I'm just going to grab the shape. I'm going to trace the whole side. And I'm going to make sure the line is transparent. I'm going to make sure that the fill is white. And then I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to send it to the back so that my AP is up at the top. So that looks good to me. And then I'm just going to call this AP testing. So it's just a very blank logo. And I'm going to do File. And I'm going to download. Oh, here it is. Up here. Download as a PNG. It's called AP testing. I save it. I'm going to go here. And instead of the themes, I'm going to click Upload. And so I can browse or I can just drag the file there. So I'm just going to drag that up. And that looks good. And so now, and do you see it changed the theme colors as well? So let me just close this. And so this looks a lot better than the other theme that people were getting. So now when new people log on, so I already have 6 responses, but when more people log into this form, they're going to see, it's going to say AP testing on it now, which is a lot better. All right, and so then the last thing that we're going to do is I'm going to do a brand new one. I'm going to do a new drawing. And did you see I could do one from templates too? So a lot of people add Bitmojis into their items. So I'm sure you've been to lots of trainings and people use a Bitmoji. And that is also an extension that you can add on. So I'm just going to click on my Bitmoji extension. And I'm just going to grab this guy. And if I right click on him, again, I can copy the image address is what I want to do. So all of these, you know, I could pick any that they have. I'm just trying to get one that sort of basic. I'm going to show you about layering. So now I'm going to insert by URL. So I'm going to paste the URL. And so it has this. I actually have no idea what HMU is. So I just want to replace that. I'm going to put a different square on top. So I'm going to grab a shape, or actually I'm going to grab a text box. And I'm going to put the text box, I'm going to try and put it in the middle. And this is like a little askew. So I'm going to maybe have to turn it a little bit. Make this go a little bit wider and make this go a little bit wider. And so I'm going to cover, so my text box right now doesn't have a fill color in it, but I am going to fill it. So I'm going to pretend it's a white sign and I'm going to put a line on the outside. So maybe like a 3-point line. And I am going to change my border color to make it brown. That one looks more browny. Okay, so now that looks like I'm actually holding that sign. And I'm going to type in it, and right here, the alignment, so these are the alignments, so that makes it center. And then this one down here puts it right in the middle. And so I'm just going to put just ask. And for this one, I'm going to make it bold, and I'm probably going to make it a little bit bigger. Not that big, so maybe 24. And then let's see what we have for... So you can sort of look to see if you like any. I'll just use this particular one. Okay, so now I have the sign. It says just ask, and I'm gonna maybe put something on my shirt. So I'm gonna put Beth Tech here. And I'm gonna resize this. So this gets all of our layering in. So we had this image. It wasn't exactly. Sometimes the Bitmojis are a little bit too cutesy for me. So I'm a pretty plain Jane kind of person. Oops. So I just need to, and I'm going to rotate a little bit so that it looks like it's on my shirt. And maybe again, I'm going to switch my font. And I'm going to make it centered. And maybe I'm going to change the color of my font to make it a little off-white-ish. A little yellowy, there we go. That looks like it would work for my shirt, and then I can get it just where I want it. So let's say I was trying to, and if I do the shift key down and then I use my arrows, then it makes the movements a little bit more small. Okay, so I'm looking at that and that looks pretty good. I can resize so that I don't have as much white space. And so now if I saved this, let's say, and so you can see that I use my Bitmoji. I just put I changed the sign so it looks like this is the sign that I was holding. It was saying something else. I don't know what those words mean. And I just put some words on my shirt. And so maybe, you know, I could make them a little closer together, make it look, maybe I could get that exact color there, but good enough for now. And now I can use this in, you know, if I have questions on any of my slides or things like that, I can put that in and it kind of looks like me a little bit. So just how I would use this, I would hit File and I would do a download, and this is where I get to decide what type of a file it is. And so a JPEG is usually an image, like a photograph, and a PNG is something that holds transparency. If I downloaded this as a JPEG, when I opened it up, it would have a white solid background and I wouldn't be able to layer. If I download as the PNG, so I'm going to hit Save. So then if I go back to one of these, let's see which one has the editing. Let me get into the editor. So if I didn't want this image, I'm going to hit delete and I'm going to insert my new image. So here's my new one that says just ask, and I can sort of move it over to the side so that it doesn't interfere. And so it's going to cut off some of it when I do, if I showed it in a presentation, but that would be fine because it wouldn't matter. You could tell that it was a sign. And because it is a PNG, you can see that it holds its transparency. If I went in, just for kicks, and I did the download as the JPEG, I want you to notice the difference, and file management and understanding different file types is a skill we want our students to know. So it's actually good that we're practicing that here. So if I drag the JPEG up, do you see what happens? It's the same file. So this image is square, but you just can't see all of that white space is transparent because of PNG. And this one, you can see it has the white space. So that one is not great for layering. So I'm going to hit delete, which is why oftentimes you want to do the PNG file type. So I hope that you play around with images and you jazz up some of the things that you are producing for your students and for yourself.